Welcome back, everyone, to Complete Aviation Solutions, deep dive number 37, where we take raw aviation data and then, we break it down and figure out what's going on. So this time around, we've got a pretty fascinating collection of reports from March 2025 dealing with, well, I guess you could say aircraft upkeep, how airlines are expanding,
Yeah.
even a pretty major financial move.
Hmm.
So, let's just dive right in.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first up, this one caught my eye. Seemed like there have been some reports about the Airbus A220, something about corrosion. Have you seen these?
Yeah, I did. It seems like they found some corrosion during routine maintenance checks on a few A220s.
A few. This doesn't sound too good. Is this like a widespread thing or what?
Well, the reports specifically say it's a limited number of aircraft, and only on certain parts, too.
Okay, so not like the whole plane's rusting away or anything?
No. Nothing like that. And keep in mind, this is all coming out during scheduled maintenance checks, so these checks are designed to catch these sorts of things early on.
So these are the checks that are supposed to happen anyway?
Yeah, exactly. And from what I'm reading, it sounds like they're already working on fixes. They say they're working with customers and suppliers to come up with the final solutions. But the important thing is that they say the entire A220 fleet is still airworthy.
That's good to hear. Do the reports say anything about where exactly they're finding this corrosion?
Yeah, actually they do. They mention some passenger seat fittings and also some parts on the wings, specifically the wing-to-body fairing.
I wonder why those particular areas are more prone to corrosion.
Well, think about it. The wing-to-body fairing, that's a pretty complex part, and it's exposed to all sorts of stresses and weather during flight. And passenger seat fittings, they get used all the time. Plus, there's potential for spills and things like that, which could lead to moisture problems.
So basically, even with regular maintenance, these are just spots that are naturally more susceptible.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show how crucial these regular checks really are.
Absolutely. And speaking of the A220, we should probably mention that there are now 408 of these planes out there. I mean, it used to be the Bombardier C-Series, but
Right. And Delta's got the most of them.
how many is that?
75 A220s for Delta. Then it's Air Baltic with 50. JetBlue has 44, and Air France is running 41.
So yeah, given how many are flying around, it sounds like they've got this corrosion thing under control, at least for now. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about Royal Air Maroc. They've got some pretty big plans for expansion.
Oh, yeah. They're looking to add like 20 aircraft by the end of 2026. That'll take them up to 73 planes total by 2027.
Wow, that's a lot of growth. Do we know what kind of planes they're getting?
Well, in 2025, they're dry leasing 4 Boeing 737-8s from Air Lease Corporation.
Dry leasing. That means they're just getting the plane itself, right? No crew or anything.
Exactly. It's a good way to ramp up capacity quickly, and it gives them more flexibility than buying the planes outright. Plus, the 737-8 is a workhorse, perfect for those shorter routes.
Makes sense. Anything else in the reports about Royal Air Maroc?
Oh, yeah, big time. They're bringing back passenger flights to Beijing Capital and São Paulo Guarulhos. Those were suspended for like 5 years.
Wow. That's huge. And they're going to be using Boeing 787-9s for those routes, right? 3 times a week?
You got it. Seems like they're really serious about long-haul travel, and they're definitely making a play for those growing markets in Asia and South America.
The reports mentioned something about satisfactory cargo figures on the Beijing route, something like 30 tons each way.
Right. I mean, those passenger planes, they carry a lot of cargo, too. That's a big chunk of revenue, especially for those long-haul flights.
So it's not just about the passengers.
Nope. It's all part of the bigger picture. And speaking of the bigger picture, Royal Air Maroc has been pretty vocal about wanting to make Casablanca a major trade hub connecting Africa, Asia, and the Americas.
Yeah, they want to be the bridge between those continents. So all these new routes and this fleet expansion, it's all part of that plan.
Exactly. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Oh, one more thing on Royal Air Maroc. The reports mentioned something about wet leasing a couple of Airbus A330-200s for a short period.
Right. Those were from High Fly Malta and Iberjet Spain. They had them for just a couple of weeks in late February and early March.
Why, just for a short time?
Seems like they needed extra capacity for flights to Medina, for Umrah pilgrims. It was a smart move, really. They got the extra planes they needed without having to commit long term.
So they could handle that peak demand without a big investment. Make sense? Okay, well, let's hop over to Southeast Asia now. Scoot, the low-cost arm of Singapore Airlines, is making some moves too.
Yeah, they're really stepping things up. Planning to add around 12 more planes this year.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not just one type of plane either. They're adding narrow bodies, wide bodies, and they've got those Embraer E190 E2s coming in too, right?
Yeah, they still have 4 E2s on order from 2023. And on top of that, they're looking at 7 to 9 Airbus A320s and 3 Boeing 787s.
So they're really covering all their bases, short haul, medium haul, long haul. And their order book is still pretty packed.
It is. More A320neos, A321neo XLRs, 787s, and those remaining E2s. They've got a solid pipeline for growth in the years ahead.
Sounds like they're not slowing down anytime soon. And they're planning on increasing frequencies on some routes and adding 4 to 6 new destinations too.
Yep. They're not saying exactly where those new destinations will be yet, but it's definitely something to watch.
For sure. New routes mean new opportunities. Now, what about those E2s they already have? How are those performing?
Really well, actually. The reports say they're helping Scoot to right-size their capacity on certain routes, and their passenger load factors are in the high 80s.
So they're filling those planes up. That's a good sign. Anything else on Scoot?
Well, they're making a change to their European network. They're ending flights to Berlin-Brandenburg at the end of March.
Oh, really? What's the reason for that?
It sounds like a commercial decision,
All right.
and they want to make better use of their aircraft, so they're going to start flying to Vienna instead, starting in June.
Interesting. So they're always evaluating their routes, making adjustments based on demand and how they can use their planes most effectively.
That's the name of the game in the airline industry. You got to stay agile.
For sure. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we got to talk about Spirit Airlines. They just emerged from Chapter 11 restructuring.
Yeah, on March 12th. Big news for the ultra-low-cost carrier.
Huge news. I mean, Chapter 11, that's no joke. So what happened? They managed to turn around USD 795 million of their debt into equity. Plus, they got USD 350 million in new investments from their current investors.
That's right, and they did it all in 4 months. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, usually these things drag on forever. The CEO was quoted saying that this restructuring puts Spirit in a strong financial position to keep transforming the business and get back to making money. They also mentioned something about improving the passenger experience.
So it sounds like you're coming out of this ready to compete.
Definitely. They filed for Chapter 11 back in November 2024, but they had a lot of support from bondholders, and they had already lined up those equity commitments. That probably helped speed things along.
Definitely. Their reorganization plan was approved by the U.S. Bankruptcy Court in February, and it included a new round of senior secured debt and a revolving credit facility. That new cash infusion will be crucial as they try to become profitable again.
Now, the big bondholders, they're shareholders now, right?
That's how these things usually work. So companies like Citadel Advisors, Pacific Investment Management Co., PIMCO, Western Asset Management Co., Alliance Bernstein LP, and Arena Capital Advisors, they're all major shareholders now.
So they basically traded their debt for a piece of the company.
Exactly. Now they've got a real stake in Spirit's success.
And Spirit's whole stock, that's all gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were delisted from the New York Stock Exchange back in December.
Yeah, that's pretty standard in these major financial restructurings. It's a clean slate for their public equity.
So, wow, that's a lot to take in. We've covered everything from aircraft maintenance to fleet expansions and a complete financial overhaul.
It's amazing how much happened in just 1 month. It really shows you how dynamic the aviation industry is.
Absolutely. We saw how manufacturers are addressing those technical issues, how airlines are planning for growth in different parts of the world, and how these big financial maneuvers can totally reshape an airline.
And it's all connected. A little bit of corrosion leads to stricter maintenance. Market demand pushes airlines to grow their fleets and open new routes. And of course, none of it works without a solid financial foundation.
Exactly. It's like a giant puzzle where each piece affects all the others. So here's a thought for you. We've seen how airlines are focused on aircraft upkeep, strategic expansion, and financial stability. But what do you think is the biggest challenge or opportunity facing the industry as we move forward in 2025? What's the next big thing in aviation?
That's a great question. And I think
It is. I mean, we've got all this data. It paints a pretty clear picture of what's happening right now. But what happens next?
well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Maybe even a billion-dollar question when you think about the scale of the aviation industry. But hey, maybe some of our listeners have some thoughts. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your predictions for the future of aviation.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights from the world of aviation. Until then, safe travels.
See you next time.